Hola, Dolores. Hi.
Hola.
It's great to see you again. So now we've had a few months where the documentary's been shown around the country. Well, hopefully around the country.
It was, actually.
What kind of response have you been getting since then?
The response has been really wonderful, tremendous, because everywhere I went with the film, I was able to talk to people about getting engaged, about doing political activity, and people would come up to me and they would say, some people would say, yeah, I haven't been active like for 20 years, and your film inspires me to get involved again. So I think it had the effect that we wanted, which is really kind of to, not only to kind of tell people that we have faith, that we can live through this moment that we're living in our history. And of course, when I was going around with the film, it wasn't as bad as it's gotten now. Things have gotten so much worse even then. But even then, just saying to people, have faith, we will be able to overcome this time.
And to that point, and kind of reiterating something that I mentioned last time we spoke, they do their best, they do their damned to erase you from the history books. But with this documentary hitting PBS and an estimated 95 to 100 million viewers, I mean, you're undeniable.
Well, I think it's not only erasing my history as a woman in my part of the movement, but also erasing the history of people of color, of the contribution that we have had to the building of this country. Starting with Native Americans, with the African slaves, and people from Mexico and India, China, the Philippines, and all these people that came here to build this country. And they continue doing the hard, difficult work. The immigrants have continued doing the hard, difficult work to keep this economy going. And that is all left out. And even now, I know that in the construction industry, they have a shortage of workers because of all of the deportations that they've had, but they don't say that. The only one place I saw that mentioned that was the Wall Street Journal of all places. They said that, they had a huge unemployment problem right now. I mean, because they didn't, employment problem because they couldn't find people to do the work.
You mentioned that one of your greatest victories is the 86 amnesty. I'm proud to say that was a path to citizenship for my father. So thank you. If that hadn't been, I probably wouldn't be sitting here in front of you, having this opportunity to literally be interviewing a historical figure. Do you ever sit and kind of have an out-of-body experience, if probably a poor way to formulate it, but look at your life and say, man, I did pretty all right for myself? Do you allow yourself to revel in the success?
Well, I kind of gauge it by how many people we were able to help. And actually, when the reporters asked me that question, I would have liked to have said when we, way back in 1961, we passed a bill that would allow people who were not citizens to get public assistance. And that covered about 15 million people that today are getting the Affordable Care Act, even though they're not U.S. citizens, but they're residents of the United States of America. But I was afraid that would be too complicated to explain to the people out there. So that's why I chose the other one of only the 2 million. And I think, but I was just, because, it's not me doing this work by myself. It's, of course, all the people that we organize that are the ones that are putting the pressure on the congressmen or on the state legislatures to make these things happen. And that's what it's all about. It's about empowering people so that they can make policy changes, through the political representatives that they have. And then encouraging them to run for those positions themselves so that they can take the power.
There was a moment in the film, sorry, I lost my voice, so. There was a moment in the film where it was discussed about the sexual assault and sexual harassment that a lot of the farm workers, the female farm workers were experiencing. When you were in the fight, was that ever something that you felt like you could advocate for on behalf of the women?
Well, actually we did, and actually I remember when I was young, my brothers would go out and do farm work. My mother would never let me go. And she never told me why. I found out why afterwards when I actually did farm work as a single woman. When we were organizing the union, I went out there and worked with Helen, with Caesar's wife. And yeah, sure enough, the labor contractors would come around you and they would look at you like you're a piece of meat, literally like sizing you up, And of course, and as a woman, of course, especially back in the day, all of us, we all faced so much sexual harassment as women. But luckily, once the laws in California were passed, we were able to get women to come out and to speak up. And even though it was very difficult for them to do so, because there was always a threat of violence. It was a threat of violence, not only by the people that they were outing, but also from their own families, because they would, they either a brother or a father or somebody would think, it's your fault. You're the one that invited this person to sexually harass you. So there was always that threat of violence, either maybe by the woman's boyfriend or husband, that they would blame her and then exact some kind of violence against her. Or again, and the thing is too, so there were so many families that worked together that if a woman reported violence against her, sexual harassment, what would happen is that they would fire the entire family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's very, very common. So most women would just keep quiet.
And so with that being said, just to piggyback on that, with what's happening with the Me Too movement and with a lot of Hollywood actresses now trying to step up and really advocate for women who are in disenfranchised positions, whether it's they're farm workers or laborers, what are your thoughts about the Me Too movement and who it's trying to impact?
I think the Me Too movement is really wonderful, but I just hope that it takes another step, not just about sexual harassment, but about the fact that women do not get equal wages, the fact that women do not get equal promotions, that we can take it to the other steps of protecting women. And even to the point of, because the United States is one of the few countries that has not ratified the United Nations Convention to end discrimination against women. It's called CEDAW, the Convention to End Discrimination Against Women, which really is you might say, a universal convention that many countries have signed on to this, except the United States of America. And we're only one of a few countries, I think we're one of maybe 5 countries like Sudan or Saudi Arabia that have not signed on to this convention, which would exact a policy throughout the United States that women and men are equal.
We're behind, that's for sure.
One of the most interesting things that you've said throughout this, all the interviews you've done, is that you think people should go out and vote, and if they don't see the policy they want, they should be going out there to try to get that policy done. At what point did you find out that, yes, we can make a difference and we should organize to make a difference?
Well, that's what got me into organizing in the first place, because I had belonged to a lot of different social organizations, and charitable organizations. We raised money to give Christmas baskets or Thanksgiving baskets, but you didn't see any changes. So when I found out by Mr. Fred Rossi, some fellow that taught us how to do grassroots organizing, Cesar and myself, when I found out that you could actually organize people and that they could make the changes, I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. They just, people get together and they take direct action, that you can really make policy changes, either by putting pressure on the politicians to make those changes or electing people that will commit to making policy changes for the people that need it. Mm-hmm.
So you're enjoying some of the politicians that have been winning the past few months, because they're people that have never been in politics, right, but at least they seem to have a better sense of how it's done compared to someone else that we know.
Yeah, and what we have to do is get, eventually we have to change and get public monies into elections, because the way it stands right now, you have to be very wealthy to be able to get elected. My son Emilio ran for Congress last year. He's running again this year, by the way. But the whole thing is that what they tell you from the DCCC, Democratic Congressional, you got to raise money. It's all about money, you know what I mean? And that's really bad, because somehow we have to get all of our elections to be publicly funded so that candidates don't have to spend all their time raising money. And then it commits them, it compromises them, when they have to raise money from individuals to get elected. Mm-hmm.
So what is one of the things that you said during the panel earlier was that after Robert Kennedy was assassinated, that the farm workers were still motivated because they had no choice but to be involved. However, unfortunately, within the Latino community, we still see that a lot of people stay at home who can vote when the time comes. So now that we're seeing the impact of what it's like when you don't vote, what would your message be to the people in the Latino community who are still on the fence about that?
Well, I think that Trump is organizing for us, because with all of his hateful rhetoric that he's come out with, his attacks on the immigrants, his attacks on Latinos. So I think that there's going to be a difference there. And I think we're already seeing that. I was just in Virginia where they elected Democratic Governor Ralph Northam, and the Latino vote actually increased. But so did the African American vote also increase, and the white the white vote actually increased, because I think that people are now really getting scared about what we're seeing in our political agenda.
Are you used to this new setting and this role in your life? You mentioned testified in front of Congress, countless rallies, tons of people have heard you, seen you speak. But now as more of an ambassador role, if you want to qualify it, in like today's panel, in front of a room full of reporters. Now we're doing the round table. We're promoting you, your movie. PBS Public Broadcasting, like I said, probably 100 million households going to see you. Is this something you feel at ease taking on at this part of your life? You know, stepping back a little bit, maybe not being on the front line so much, but doing the media.
Well, actually, we're still on the front lines. I mean, my foundation, that's what we're doing. We're organizing. We're trying to stop the school-to-prison pipeline. I left the Farm Workers Union 15 years ago, and I've continued organizing ever since then. And, you know, we're right now active in about 7 different school districts. We're active in 4 different counties in the Central Valley of California, organizing parents to confront the school districts on this school-to-prison pipeline. We sued the Kern High School District, and we settled that lawsuit. Now they have to change their practices and procedures. They have to have positive behavior intervention systems, restorative justice system, cultural competency for the teachers. And now, so this is in the Kern High School District, which is in Kern County, near Bakersfield. And now we're in another area, Mojave, where the suspension and expulsion rate of African American students is 81%. I mean, 8 out of 10 African American kids are getting expelled from school and suspended from school. And this is happening throughout the Central Valley of California. And so we find that 40% of the school districts that have the highest rates of suspension and expulsion are in the Central Valley of California. These are the farm worker children, you know? And so this is what we're doing. We're focusing on that. And we know that this situation exists all over the United States. It exists in Los Angeles, it exists in New York City, in Texas, Chicago, everywhere you go. And this is depriving our kids of an education, depriving them of the power that they should have with an education, and filling up the prisons, you know. And it's very insidious, it's very well organized, and we are working to stop that system. And I think we're having some effect. And as we can get more resources, we can get into more school districts. So that's kind of our focus, is on, again, stopping the school-to-prison pipeline, getting people to engage civically. We're trying to, get people to run for those school boards, and so also to implement the policies of education that we can put into our school books. As I said on the panel, in every school book, pre-K, we've got to have information and education about the contributions of people of color to build the United States of America, and the work that people are still doing. Because if not, we're not going to be able to end the racism, the white supremacist mentality that exists in our society.
Are you seeing a lot of blowback from the prison guard unions when you try to change the laws in order to have people of color not be so easily thrown into jail for nonviolent crimes?
Well, we know that the prison guard unions are they're there to protect their workers and to advocate for their workers. I personally do believe that police, since they are hired by city councils and boards of supervisors, that they are not and should not be policymakers. They are there to protect the peace and to protect people. They should not have a voice in making policies. Unfortunately, by now we know that they do. And there's in one scene in the movie there where we talk about the police brutality. There's a scene in the movie, the people that have seen it, that shows while I'm getting beaten up by the police, George Walker Bush is talking about the democracy. So it's a very ironic and I think a kind of a genius piece that Peter Bratt put into the movie. But the movie addresses kind of all of the things that we're still fighting for right now, and that's what I think makes the movie so relevant. Because even some of the incidents took place like 40 years ago, the fact that all of this is still going on today, I think that's why it makes the movie timely.
It is very, like I told you, I've seen it 3 times because there's so much to absorb. And it is really, really such a timely documentary. And it probably needs another one done with you because of everything that's going on around us. Right. It's so, I just have to say it because we didn't say it, but what was your reaction recently when 45 describe certain countries.
Well, I think again it shows his ignorance because one of the countries that he named was Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria has more college graduates than the United States of America.
Yes.
Again, the man is just, and it's sad because I think he represents what many of us of color have been living in the United States all of our lives. This ignorance that people have, and they're considering that somehow they're superior because they happen to be Anglo.
Yeah.
And it's really dangerous because we know that it's not just about what they call identity politics, but it's about where do the resources go. They're not distributed equally in our society. They don't go to working people, they don't go to people of color, and the other thing too that I think is kind of not really included a lot in the conversation when we talk about feminism, when we talk about immigrants or civil rights or even LGBT rights. Somehow people leave out the conversation about labor unions.
Yeah.
And I think this is another thing that really needs to be included in the conversation because if labor unions do not exist, we do not have a democracy. And I think that's where we're going in that direction right now because labor unions, like immigrants, have been the source of attack by the conservatives and by the right wing, and the elimination of the rights of workers to be able to have their own organizations, to have their unions, I think is really, we're already seeing the impact of that.
Yes.
And I say that because we know that the wages have not increased, pretty much, and yet we see that the salaries of the people in the Fortune 500. I mean, when you talk about these CEOs that have multi-millions of dollars in their salaries, like one of these Fortune 500 guys will have like multi-millions of dollars for 1 year.
Yeah.
Of the work that they don't do, and yet working people have a hard time having to work 2 jobs just to pay the rent, to put the food on the table. And I mean, those are things I think that really affect our society, and the public sometimes they may be aware, but there's no really action to kind of how do we change this? How do we get past this?
Go ahead.
Considering the fact that you basically said that what's going on in the movie still feels very relevant today, how have you been able to stay positive and committed to the fight and not frustrated? Because I know just a year of Trump being in office, I already feel exhausted. And I can already tell like your fervor is there and still just as strong.
Well, because I'm an organizer, and when you see something as negative as this, you say, well, okay, this is a great organizing opportunity. And when we started the conversation, we talked about what was the reaction of people that saw the film. Well, the reaction has been very, very strong because people realize, oh my goodness, how did this happen, And we've got to get involved to make sure that we can change it. So I think it's an organizing opportunity to really get people to wake up and to realize that they have the power to change it. That it can't stay like this because it's a detriment to our society.
So kind of staying on that, by your own admission, had it not been for Carlos Santana giving you his encouragement to do this documentary, you probably would have preferred to just let things be the way they are. Now that this wonderful documentary has been made, in your wildest dreams did you ever imagine having such a powerful promotional tool to organize the country, the people?
Yeah, I always that I'm glad you said that because when these other folks approached me about making a documentary, I felt they were like from Hollywood individuals, Hollywood types, and I just didn't feel that that's the way it would turn out. I think the reason that I trusted Peter, because Peter is an activist, and I really trusted him because I think he had that organizer lens, and he would understand and make the movie, around the idea of getting people involved, and showing the impact of what poor people can do when they get organized.
Fantastic.
Having Peter and Benjamin kind of grow up in the same type of environment that your children grew up, do you think that helped in make this documentary a little bit more personal and a lot more relatable?
Possibly. I think the one thing that was left out, and I did mention this during the panel, the one thing that was left out of the documentary was the positive experiences that my children had growing up, where they were able to go on marches. Some of them even got arrested. Some of my kids went to jail. My son, who's a doctor now, Fidel, was arrested when he was 16 years old during the Gallo campaign. And my son, Emilio, who's not running for Congress, got arrested during the Tom Hayden campaign when he was running for the Senate by the police. And I mean, that was left out because my kids had really positive experiences. You know, one of my daughters, Maria Elena, was able to go to Canada with Jane Fonda when she was making one of her movies. So they had these experiences that other kids will not in a million years be able to have the experiences that they had. So, you know, they had a lot of great positive experiences, and I think it really shaped their lives. You know, the way that they grew up, and it gave them, I think, even though they were very poor growing up, and didn't have the wonderful middle class experiences that I had. They had other movement experiences, I think, that really made them strong. And again, they can't be duplicated anywhere. You know, the marches that they were on, and going to jail as kids, you know, but I think it really helped them be strong.
Well, I've met some of your kids, and they're fantastic.
Last question, if you can.
You know, on that wonderful note, I think
We're good.
Thank you so much for doing this with
And I
us.
want to thank all of you also, because I think we're living a novela right now, you know, in our time. I think it's very exciting, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to come out really, really strong. And I've been, as you know, as I go around with the movie, I've been quoting Pablo Neruda, the Chilean poet, who said, "They can cut all the flowers, but they can't hold back the spring."
Hey.
And this is what I say to people, que nosotros somos la primavera. You know, we are the spring, and we are the ones that are going to sow the seeds of justice out there. And those seeds are going to bloom, and we're going to come out stronger than ever. I believe, like in the civil rights movement, when we had all the turmoil that was going on, and we came out stronger. There's a lot of things that we have to do to dismantle the systems of oppression. And but now I think, especially with the social media tools that we now have, and with really educated media, that we're going to be able to make it happen. Sí se puede.
Sí se puede.
Gracias.
Can I get a picture with you?